Okay, so we're back. This is video, if you're watching this, this is video 4. This is video 4, and we're continuing our series or readings out of the book of Judith. So this is video 4, and I'm starting with chapter 6. What am I starting? Chapter 6, around for going down after verse 14, I guess starting at 16. So if you're watching this, oh gosh, I'm doing these videos back to back, so it's like I can't do the summary anymore. I've done it 3 times. But the point is, if you're watching this, what has happened? So Achior has been tossed out from his people and his army, and he was thrown to the base of the mountain of the Israelites. And so the Israelites have found him, and they've brought him into their into their hill city. And they have untied him, and now they've brought Achior before the elders. So we'll just pick up and start reading. So Ozias is one of the Israelite elders. So we'll just start reading. So it says, then Ozias asked him, Achior, asked him what had happened. He answered and declared to them the words of the council of Holofernes and all the words that he had spoken in the midst of the princes of the children of Achior, and all the great words that Holofernes had spoken against the house of Israel. So just to review, when this says Achior is telling the Israelite elders all of the great words that Holofernes had spoken against the house of Israel, those great words were threats, okay? These great words were threats, basically saying all the things he was going to do. So that's what he's referring to. So verse 18 out of chapter 6. Then the people, the Israelites, fell down and worshiped God and cried, saying, O Lord Yah, or God of heaven, behold their, this is true, behold their arrogance, and pity the low estate of our race. Look on the face of those who are sanctified to you this day. This is important. So this one verse calls out the arrogance of the other nation, and it calls on God to look on us, or Israelites as a people, and to look on the face of those who are sanctified before you. So I think that this is an important note for the days to come. This is not everybody. They're praying for Yah to look upon the faces of those that are sanctified. So again, if you are in Israel, you want to be sanctified. And we're going to talk about that, but that's just a thing that struck me in the scripture. Okay, so verse 20. They comforted Achior and praised him exceedingly. So they're comforting him because he's been through a lot. If this is your first video, you missed 1 through 3, but basically you can go back to 3. He went through a lot. His own people threatened him. They tossed him to the wolves. So this is saying that the Israelites they're comforting him, right? He's a Gentile, but they're comforting him, and I guess they're praising him because I guess he told the truth. He maybe I look at it as they're saying thank you for warning us and telling us this is what's going down, and we're comforting you because you've been through a lot. He's been through a lot. Okay, so it says, then Ozias, that's the elder, took him out of the assembly into his house and made a feast for the elders, and they called on the God of Israel for help all that night. So they took Achior away, and then they made a feast, and so now the Israelites have heard that Holofernes is basically coming for them, and they've heard all these threats, and so now the elders are coming together to come before the God of Israel, right? So I'm actually going to stop there and jump towards the end, because it's a lot of reading, but for the purpose of these videos, I'm skipping over a lot of chapters and just going straight to 14 towards the end. So we're going to go towards the end because, again, the whole point of this was just, talking about different things. So I'm not reading the whole book of Judith. Again, you guys can read that on your own, but for this, I'm just doing different parts that stood out. So this is chapter 14. So to summarize, I'm trying to think if I want to give it away, but I guess I'll give it away. So to summarize, Judith comes on the scene, and she is a wonderful woman of Yah, right? She's described as, I guess she's an elder, but she's a widow. Judith is a widow, and she basically is living her life it says that she was fasting and prayer. She's living a life of fasting and prayer. And so, long story short, the elders come together. Oh God, I guess I will explain it. So the elders come together about like what to do about Holofernes and like the army, Nebuchadnezzar's army coming against them. So the armies, this is important. They're in war. So the armies of a lot of the nations. This is, I think, the Edomites, which is like, ancestors of like modern day Europeans. The Moabites, the Ammonites. Those are ancestors of like modern day like Asians. Just so you can have like an idea. They're surrounding the camp. They're surrounding Israel. And so they had an idea, because they're doing war. They had an idea. We don't have to fight them. This is the other nations. When it comes to the Israelites, we don't have to fight them. We'll basically starve them out, or we'll starve them out, right? So they cut the water supply. They take a hold of the water supply so that the Israelites can basically die of thirst. So they can start dying of thirst, and then they can run in and take the city. This is what the enemies were thinking. So the elders have this plan of, we'll go before God. This is what it is, that we'll go before God. And if nothing happens within 5 days, basically we're going to give in to Nebuchadnezzar. Like, we're going to give into we're going to surrender. Basically, we're going to surrender. So Judith comes on the scene and she's like, no, she's like, we're not surrendering. Like, she's like, she said, God will answer us, like, we're not surrendering. Oh, this is a word. She says, and war is coming here, so we should all take this word in our spirit. This is a word. She basically is saying, we're not going to put a time limit on God. Like, because what they were saying was, we're going to wait only 5 days. And if nothing happens, like, basically, like, we're just going to give up. But Judith comes on the scene and she's like, no, we're not putting a time limit on the God of the Bible. Like, we have to, that's not trusting in him. He will deliver us. So we're not putting a time limit on him. We're going to, and so basically she just takes matters into her own hands. She's like, let me leave. I'll consult God. And so she says, I'm going to go consult God. If I fail, and if I die, or if I fail, then you guys can, I guess, surrender. But if I don't, but we're going to wait for God to answer us. So I'm paraphrasing this for the sake of time, because I'm already running out of time. So anyways, moving on, chapter 14, basically Judith is victorious. I'll just say that she's victorious. So she's victorious. They beat, Holofernes and his armies and all these armies. So, but the point is, now they're going through all the victory of that. Again, read this on your own, but but for the purpose of this video, we're jumping towards chapter 14. So chapter 14, verse 6. So we're bringing it back to the point of the Gentiles. So this is the point. If you are a Gentile, it's important to know who the Israelites are, because when your people turn against you, like Achior, there's a reward for the Gentiles, right? So Achior, in the end, remember, he's been threatened. He's been tossed aside. He's been through all. And the Israelites too. The Israelites who had the enemy nations encamping around them, and the one Gentile who left. He didn't have a choice, but he was tossed out, and he was with the Israelites. So in the end, the Israelites beat their enemies, and this is what it says. It says. And they called Achior, so this is after beating their enemies, and they called Achior, he's the Gentile, back out of the house of Ozias. But when he came and saw, he saw the head of Holofernes in a man's hand in the assembly of the people, he fell to his face and his spirit fell. So you got to understand, I'm not hyping it up enough, but Holofernes was the man that threatened him. Holofernes was the man that was like, I'm going to kill all of them, and I'm going to kill you too. So when he comes out, he sees that this man's head, the Israelites are holding his head, right? So he says, so he fell on his face, right, with the spirit. And it says, but when they had recovered him, he fell at Judith's feet and bowed down to her and said, blessed are you in every tent of Judah and in every nation, which are hearing your name will be troubled. Now tell me all the things that you have done in these days. So Judith recounts all of the things that led up to her basically getting the head of Holofernes. And you can read the story on your own, but she recounts that. And Achior, it says about Achior, verse 10 out of 14, chapter 14, verse 10. But when Achior saw all the things that the God of Israel had done, he believed in God exceedingly, and he circumcised the flesh of his foreskin and was joined to the house of Israel to this day. But as soon as the morning arose, they hanged the head of Holofernes on the wall, and every man took his weapons, and they went out by the hands to the ascent of the mountain. So it's just still war. But the point of this is Achior got his reward. He got to, the man that, so this is the point. Achior stood with, for the most part, he didn't have a choice, but he stood with Israel, and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob delivered the Israelites, and then also delivered the Gentiles that stood with him. Because remember, he was about to get threatened. He was threatened too. So he got to see the head of his enemy, the man that threatened him, be basically hung up. And this is another point that I wanted to call out. Because remember, this is a template. If you are a Gentile, if you are a non-Israelite, what is the template? Okay, what did Achior do? Okay, Achior never, when Achior went in to be with the Israelites, see, Achior wasn't like Gentiles today, or non-black people, or black people that aren't Israelites today. Achior was not like that, okay? What I'm saying is, when he went to be with the Israelites, and then when they got the victory, Achior never once wasted time saying, I don't care who the Israelites are. God loves everybody. I don't care. I don't care. What does it say that he did? It says he believed in God exceedingly, and he circumcised his flesh and was joined to the house of Israel. My point is, this is a template of what it looks like to be joined to the house of Israel. It's not saying you don't care. It's not doing all of that. It's truly acknowledging who Israel is, taking on the God of Israel, standing with Israel even in battle, seeing the reward of God's deliverance, and then, again, coming into by faith, coming into the culture. It never said that he became an Israelite. That's another thing. It doesn't say that he became an Israelite by blood. He joined them in faith, right? So that's, so you can't become an Israelite just by blood. It's in faith. So I'm saying this is a great template for what it's like to be a Gentile. If you are a Gentile, you don't want to do the whole, it don't matter, whatever folks say, okay? You want to read Rahab, Cornelius, like I said, the Phoenician woman, Achior out of Judith. Study those, because those are good templates. And I want to end on another scripture. So Judith has gotten victory. This is out of chapter 16. Judith has gotten victory, and she's proclaiming kind of like a prophecy for the future. So this is for all of us. This is for the future. She says, so she's giving a speech, and she says, but he who fears the Lord is great continually. Listen, this is for the future. Woe to the nations who rise up against my race. She's an Israelite. The Lord Almighty will take vengeance on them in the day of judgment, to put fire and worms in their flesh, and they will weep and feel their pain forever. Whoa, y'all better read this. This is for, again, do you remember the videos I did a couple videos back, and we talked about this. We talked about the day of judgment, how Jesus is not just judging for like the general things that people talk about. There's a specific judgment for how people treated the Israelites. Okay? She's referencing that. This is the end time. So she's prophesying, referencing that. She's saying, woe to the nations who rise up against my race. The Lord Almighty will take vengeance on them. When? In the day of judgment. So that's for the future. To put fire and worms in their flesh, and they will weep and feel their pain forever. So people like Holofernes is reserved for this judgment. People who say it doesn't matter is reserved for this judgment. But if you want to be a righteous, set-apart Gentile, you want to be like Rahab. You want to be like Achior. You want to stand with Israel. Standing is acknowledging. You want to be prepared for the persecution that may come, again, at the hands of your own people. But you want to stand for truth. And you want to stand for righteousness. And righteousness is truth. So this is going to end. I really want to, again, this is the book of Judith. I skipped through that, but this is the book of Judith. So just so you guys know, I'm going to put a playlist together on the YouTube channel. So I'll put all these videos in a playlist. But I hope that you got some benefit out of this. Again, read the book of Judith on your own. It's fantastic. And that's it. The next video, I will talk about I'm going to start probably talking about the narrow way and being a remnant. But I pray that all these readings blessed you. If you have any questions, reach out. And yeah, that's it. So take care. Be blessed. Love you guys.